I'm still glad you're with us today. It is great to be with you. And, if you haven't been here, let me tell you what we've been talking about. What we've been doing is actually pretty straightforward. We've been looking at a letter that was written to some friends in a place called Thessalonica. And the reason why it's important, or at least the thing that I've been taking from it, is this letter was so encouraging. It was really a breath of fresh air, and it was written to a group of friends to let them know that they were doing a good job, that they were doing well. And I think the reason why it speaks so loudly to me anyway is because I feel like that's exactly what we need to hear. That's exactly what's been going on around us, is we've been doing a good job, but sometimes we don't get the encouragement that we need. Sometimes we never hear that, hey, you're doing well. And that's what this letter was about. And what's so exciting to me about it is this isn't the generic, inauthentic, don't really mean it, oh, hey, you're special, everything's going great, you're doing a good job. This was actually real. So it was heartfelt. This was meaningful. They were letting them know you are doing something important and it matters. And I don't know about you, but here's my guess. You've been doing great work. You really have. In lots of different areas of your life, because I hear the stories. And I know that you are doing wonderful things. And I also know there's a good chance that it often goes unnoticed and unappreciated. I mean, maybe you've made some real strides when it comes to relationships. Maybe you've gotten to that point where, you're actually kind of carrying a relationship and it feels like the other person doesn't even notice. That can be frustrating. Or maybe it's happened in other areas of your life. You've really made some important health strides, or you've made some big character changes and you're excited about it, but it seems like nobody else seems to appreciate what's happening. Or maybe it's at work. Your boss rewards you after you've accomplished this incredibly hard project and done amazing work by giving you an even harder project instead of stopping to say thank you. As a matter of fact, when you think about work, one of the things, we're in a great resignation. I don't know if you knew that or not. A lot of people stepping away from their jobs for a lot of different reasons. But really the one thing that seems to be central to all of it, why people are leaving their work so much, is they feel unappreciated. And it's not that they want the credit, right? It's not that they want to be the stand up in front of the company and everybody applauds and everybody tells me how wonderful I am. When they surveyed people that were leaving, you know what they found out? What they really wanted was a boss or a coworker to say these simple words: I see that you're working hard, it's making a difference, and I really appreciate it. That so many of us in our job, if somebody would stop and do that, that is a lift. That is an encouragement. That'll help me go forward. But in so many cases, we don't. And so, let me just say this to you. If you've never heard that, you are doing a good job. And I really mean it. And if you happen to be in a position of leadership, whether it's at home or at work or anywhere else it might be, the people around you would love to hear you notice and encourage them and appreciate what they're doing. So if you get nothing else out of today, take some time to appreciate the people around you, because that's exactly what this letter that we're looking at does. He kind of clears the air and he just says, I see what you're doing. And it matters. You are doing great when it comes to following Jesus. He tells them over and over and over again to this little church that's 2,000 years away from us, in a place most of us will never go. He says, you are doing great when it comes to following Jesus. And as I read this letter, and as I look at this church, which I know I say it all the time, and I'm going to keep saying it, the church, it's not a building, it's not a budget, it's not an institution. Who is the church? The church is you and me, right? It's us. We are the church. And so when we say that the church is doing great, what we really mean is you and I, we are doing great when it comes to following Jesus. And the way we've said it this whole series is when we stand firm together, we affirm each other. When we stand firm together, not standing up for our rights, not insisting on getting our way, not trying to make a point. No. When we stand firm about following Jesus and loving other people, it builds each other up. It inspires, it encourages, it gives strength to other people when we do that. And that's exactly what Paul was doing. And when he writes this letter and I read this letter and I look at our church, it's almost as if I see God looking at us saying, I see you're working hard. It makes a difference. And I really appreciate it. Keep going. And the reason I say that, if I look back over the last few weeks, and some of you have been here for all these weeks, and some of you have only been here, today's your first day, or maybe you're here for a couple of them. But at the very beginning of this, we talked about what it really looks like, what it really means, faith, hope, and love. And those are great ideas, and those are things that everybody likes. And if you've ever worked at a company, that stuff they put on their mission statement and their corporate values that everybody shoves in a drawer and never pays any attention to. They're good ideas. They don't really mean anything, but they actually mean something here. And the way Paul talked about him, he said, it's your labor of love. It's the work of faith. You are actually putting something behind this. It's not just talk. It's not just ideas. And then we talked about the fact that for many of us, when we became followers of Jesus, we didn't know what we were doing. We imitated somebody else. We had to. We imitated people that were further along than us. And before we knew it, people were imitating us. Not because we were setting ourselves up, but as we followed Jesus, other people saw it, and it encouraged them. And it gave them something to look at, and they thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. If they can follow Jesus through that kind of situation, so can I. And it started to make a huge difference. They started to gain a reputation just like you have started to gain a reputation. And before long, we realized that, you know what, this whole idea of following Jesus means that my life is different. It doesn't look like everybody else's. That there are some different values, there are different choices that I make, and it has everything to do with how I live my life, my morality, my sexuality. All of these things are impacted and dictated by me following Jesus first. That's the first part. Everything else flows from that. And so because that's true, my life does look different from people that don't follow Jesus. And it's not that I'm better than, and I'm not judging them, and I'm not putting them down. It's just a recognition that if I'm gonna follow Jesus, my life is going to be very different than somebody that doesn't follow Jesus. And you've been doing this, and today we're gonna talk about this idea of loving each other and loving your neighbors. And I'm so glad to tell you, it's an area where you excel, you absolutely excel. And so if you've got a Bible or you wanna follow along on an app, we're gonna be in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And we actually looked at this last week too. And as we dug into it, the image or the analogy that I came up with is, it's almost as if a dad is teaching his son how to ride a bike. Now, some of you remember this. You would get them on the bike and you'd help them get started and you run alongside, and at some point you let go. And what do? You cheer for them, you encourage them. You're doing it, you're doing great, keep going, you got this. We focus on the progress, not on the flaws, right? and we make a big deal out of anything that is positive, anything that they're doing well. We want to cheer for them, we want to encourage them, and that's exactly what Paul's doing. He's cheering for us, he's encouraging us, he's telling us, you're doing it, just keep going, because why? So often, and you know this, you experience this, you gotta have a good day, and you have a good week, and things kind of line up, and maybe even you get a good month, maybe you get a good couple of months, and then something happens, doesn't it? Because something always happens. And we need somebody to remind us, you're doing it, you're doing well, keep going, don't stop. Yes, it got hard. Yes, you didn't expect this. Yes, this isn't what you wanted, but keep going. And he says, underneath all of this, there's two core ideas. We looked at that one last week, that it has a lot to do with how we see other people and how we treat other people, and the moral and sexual decisions we make are actually a big part of what it means to follow Jesus. But this week, he kind of trumps everything. He kind of crowns the whole thing with one simple idea, and it's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 9. He says it this way. He says, about your love for one another, we do not need to write you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. And in fact, you do love all of God's family throughout Macedonia. Yet we urge you, brothers and sisters, to do so more and more, and to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you. Do you ever think the Bible would tell you to mind your own business? Verse 12, so that there's a reason, it's not being rude, there's a reason, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, and you will not be dependent on anyone. He's in essence telling them, you're doing it. I don't even really need to say anything. You do this so well. But I am going to say it because it is so important. You love each other, and in this case, in this church, and I think in our church, they had begun to view each other as family. They talk to each other about brothers and sisters, and this isn't the hip, trendy, hey bro, good job, give me a fist bump. This is the real, you're part of my family. Like the good and the bad, when you're soaring and when you're sour. I mean, we got a place for you, right? You are part of the family. You matter to me, and hopefully I matter to you, and we are committed to each other. He's saying you loved each other so well, it was hard to distinguish. You look like one giant family. You're doing so well. And one of the things they discovered in the middle of all of this is something that so many people that I run into are searching for. So many people, especially younger adults, older teenagers, and even young married couples, I hear it over and over and over again. They're trying to figure out this one thing that the Thessalonians figured out, and that many of you have figured out. They want to know, what is it that makes my life meaningful? What is it that gives me purpose? Why should I get out of bed every day? Why should I grind? Why should I work hard? Why should I do anything? What is it? What's behind all of it? What's the point? Paul says it's this: loving like you mean it makes life meaningful. When you love people like you mean it, that's what makes life meaningful. It's not seeing the perfect movie. It's not the new romantic interest. It's not making a lot of money. It's not all the accomplishments that you get. It's not all the things that you can stack up. If you want a meaningful life, it only comes from one place: from loving people like you mean it. And I think most of us get that. We understand it. We hear that and we think, yeah, that makes sense. I like that. I could do that. And maybe you can, but I can't. I mean, I can for a while. I can with one or two people, but all the people I run into all the time, I'm way too moody for that. I mean, I am way too finicky and picky and self-righteous and everything else. There's no way I can do that. I can't do it. I can't do it. I will never do that on my own. But I don't have to. You see, the same Paul that wrote this letter wrote another letter called Romans. And in that letter, he explained exactly how this works. And in Romans 5:5, he says it this way: that God has poured his love out into our hearts. We are not the source. It isn't me gritting my teeth, clenching my fists, and I'm going to love people. No, that's not going to work. I can't do it. But God pours his love out into our hearts. And he doesn't stop there. It's not just that he is the source and gives us the ability to do it. Then the Holy Spirit comes and lives within us and teaches us how to do it. And I know that's a little hard to look at. But at the same time, if you're really pressed, it's true, isn't it? I can't really love like I mean it all the time on my own. I've tried, but it doesn't work. Sooner or later, he does something I don't like, or she says something I don't agree with, or they make a choice that I can't support, and I want to cut them off. Can't do it anymore. I mean, I can tolerate them, but love them like I mean it, I can't do that on my own. And even if I was plugged into this source, the truth is, because I've never really experienced it, at least not that often, where I know other people loved me like they meant it, I don't exactly know how to do it. And so God comes along and he says, I'm going to give you the source. I'm going to give you the power to do it. And I'm going to give you a teacher to do it. And the perfect expression of that is Jesus. The perfect expression of that is Jesus. You see, Jesus taught about love all the time. And if you're a follower of Jesus, even if you're not, you've heard some of the things he said in the Sermon on the Mount. He said, love your enemies. He said, do for others what you want to do for you, what you want them to do for you. He taught about what love actually looked like. Not the idea, not the pretty, safe idea that, we can put on t-shirts and everybody's excited about, but the actual real work of loving people like you mean it. He taught about it. In the story of the prodigal son, what does love look like? It looks like forgiveness. He taught about it in the story of the Good Samaritan. What does love look like? It looks like sacrifice. And so not only did he teach about it, but as you read about his life, you realize he showed it. Over and over and over. He was patient with people that just didn't get it. He was self-sacrificing. He constantly put himself to the side so that he could build up other people. He was forgiving when people messed up, when people betrayed him, when people let him down, when people should have done better and they knew better, and he forgave them. And then, of course, the ultimate, right? He dies on a cross. And again, hard truth, in your place, for your sins, so that you could be right with God. Nothing that he had done. He took it for you so that you could have a relationship with God. That's what love looks like. Jesus taught it. Jesus showed it. And then, just to make sure there was no mistake, just to make sure that nobody's like, well, wait a minute, do you really mean that? I mean, what about, and what if the situation? And, I get it, Jesus, when your day it was like this, but you don't understand my deal. And John 13:34, Jesus says this: a new command I give you. Love one another. Jesus didn't give a lot of commands, but he reserved this idea for a command. I am commanding you, if you're going to follow me, love one another. And again, we might define love in a lot of different ways, and so he clears that up too. How? What does it look like? What does it mean? As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Do you want to know what it looks like, how it works? You do for each other what I do for you. That's what it means to love like you mean it. A new command I give you. Love one another. How? What does it look like? Let me make sure there's no mistake. Let me make sure everybody's clear. It's the things that I said. It's the things that I did. And when you're in the moment and you don't know what to do what I did. That's what it looks like to love like you mean it. A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. Okay, here's the good news. You're doing it. You're doing it. Paul wrote to this church to compliment them on what they were doing. And I think, like I said, it applies to us. We're doing it. We're living that out. Perfectly? No. All the time? Of course not. But is it our personality? Is it our character? Is it where we're striving to be and to do? Absolutely. Absolutely. We are working hard to love like we mean it. And it is. It's labor. It's not easy to do. It takes some work. As a matter of fact, there's 2 areas in your life where it's going to show up time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. It's in your relationships, right? And it's also in your focus. You see, loving like you mean it means no relationship regrets. Now, most of us, we think about all the relationships in our life. The ones we have, the ones we like, the ones we don't like, the ones that are going well, the ones that aren't going well. It's not too hard to come up with 1 or 2 that feels a little broken. Or maybe it feels a lot broken. You know, it may be just that something's just not quite right, or it may be like just, man, things broken in half, you know. Most of us have some kind of a relationship, friend, family, coworker, schoolmate, whatever it is, where there was a relationship there, but now it's not good. It's broken. Some form or fashion, it's broken. Maybe it was your fault, maybe it was their fault. Maybe if you told your story, everyone would agree with you. You're right. It's all their fault. I mean, you deserve to be hurt. You deserve to be mad. You deserve to feel like they messed up and they let you down. And you know what? You're right. But it's still broken. And I'm guessing this. If you could. Now, I know we can't. But if you could just snap your fingers and make all of your relationships healthy, wouldn't you do it? I mean, wouldn't you do it? Even the most bitter, angry person I know, if you gave them that opportunity, I think they would take it. Because intuitively, we all know when the relationship's broken, it kind of gnaws at us. We feel a sense of things being unright. We have an uneasiness. We have a level of regret. But here's what you also know, especially if you've been doing relationships for a little while. You can't. You can't snap your fingers. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you do right, no matter how much you invest in reconciling that relationship, what does it really depend on? They have to want to, right? I mean, you can do everything that you could think of doing, but they got to play ball. Because if they don't, it doesn't matter. Reconciliation is a really hard goal because it depends on someone else. But no regrets is actually a very attainable goal because it only depends on you. So let me kind of break this out for just a second. What does a no regret when it comes to relationships really look like? It looks like you not waiting for them to apologize. It looks like you not waiting for them to figure it out. It looks like you not waiting for them to ask for forgiveness. It even looks like you not waiting until it's not, awkward anymore. It looks like you saying, I'm going to forgive them. No, what they did isn't right. No, they don't deserve it. By the way, neither do you. Nobody deserves forgiveness. Forgiveness is always a gift because it comes when somebody's done something wrong. It's always a gift. So it looks like you forgiving. It looks like you, and here's the key, opening the door back up. Are things going to go back to the way they were? Maybe, maybe not. Does it mean you should stand up and take abuse? No, of course not. What it means is I am going to keep the door open. I am going to invite them back into my life at whatever level it works out to be, but I'm going to make sure there's no regrets. And here's where this really hits. A year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, on your last day, you don't want to be looking back and saying, I don't know why it didn't work. I don't know why I never could get over it. I don't know why we couldn't be in the same room together. I don't know why we couldn't talk. I don't know why we could never seem to get past it. See, loving like you mean it means I am not going to have any relationship regrets. I can't guarantee that it's going to be fixed. I don't know that it's ever going to go back to the way it was. But what I'm going to do is I am going to forgive, and I'm going to open the door, and I'm going to let them know that I love them and I care about them. I want God's best for them. What it means for the relationship and how close we are or how much we hang out or if they still come to my house and all those things, I don't know. But I'm going to make sure there's no regrets. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure the door stays open. And when you do that kind of stuff, you know what happens? You get a reputation. You get a reputation, but it's a good kind. You get a reputation as being the kind of person that is for other people. That you care for them, that you have room for them, that you let people belong to you. And when we do that collectively, we get that same reputation. That this church is a place that is for people. A church is a place where people belong. I read a study. I love dogs, and so I saw this little study about dogs, and I had to read it. And they're talking about these dogs, and actually it's kind of a good idea. They wanted to know, why do dogs get excited? What gets their heart rate going? What gets their tail wagging? All this other stuff. And so they put, I don't even know what this looks like, but they put these weirdo monitors somehow on a dog, and they found this. You know what gets a dog's heart rate to increase by 46%? When their owner tells their dog, which I don't talk to my dog, they're dogs, but whatever. When the owner tells their dog they love them, their heart rate increases 46% and their tails wag almost every time. Yeah, I don't know what to do with that, but here's what I do know. If it works for dogs, man, what do you think it does for people? When you not only tell them, but you actually show them. Even if the relationship's a little broken, even if it's a little dysfunctional, even if there's some pain there, when you move in to make sure that they know that you love them and you will not stand for having regrets, things start to change. It may go back to the way it was, it may not, but things start to change when we love like we mean it. That's why it's so important that we keep our focus. It's so important that we stay locked on. And that's what Paul was saying. We said, mind your own business. He's like, keep your focus. You see, staying in our lane is loving like we mean it. Now, what does that mean? It means that the world around you being controversial, the world around you being divided, the world around you flooded with opinions and people who want to fight and argue, let me tell you something, it may feel odd right now, but it's nothing new. It's been going on as long as there's people, okay? This is not new. This has always been. And Paul is saying, you got to keep your focus. Your job isn't to win fights and win arguments and make stands. Your job is to love like you mean it. Keep your focus. Don't get distracted by all these other things. And I'll show you my secret, what I do. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or I got it figured out. But when I feel like I'm starting to get out of my lane, here's a little exercise that I do. I start to picture, if Jesus had my life, what would he do? Like, if Jesus worked where I worked, how would he interact with the other people? How would he do his work? How would he talk to his boss? How would he talk about people when they're not in the room? How would Jesus do my job? And what would he be like at my work? How would Jesus deal with my family? the family that I like and the other family, right? How would he respond to them? What kind of conversations would he have? What would he do when somebody in the family did something that none of the rest of the family agreed with? How would he respond? And don't get it twisted. Jesus isn't walking around rubber stamping everything, just smiling and nice all the time. Jesus was the perfect mixture of love and truth. What would Jesus do if he had my spouse or my kids or my in-laws or my parents or my brother? What would he do? What would that look like? Take it even one step further. What if Jesus had your friends? How would he interact with them? What would he do with them? Where would they go? What would they say? How would they treat each other? One more, because I'm sure you've got it. Probably got a few people in your life that disagree with you. Maybe about big things, maybe about little things, maybe about a lot of things, maybe only a few. I don't know. How would Jesus deal with the people that disagree with you? What would he do? What would he say? In my mind, when I'm not doing very well, Jesus would agree with me, right? He would get on my side and he would debate them for me and he would show them that they were wrong and he would prove the point. And then, actually, that's not really what Jesus does, is it? It's not really how he works. He helps people repent by showing them kindness. How would Jesus do if he was me? You see, and if you're not a follower of Jesus, hey, you're off the hook. This does not apply to you. If you are a follower of Jesus, you realize the people around you that you work with, they have every right to watch you very closely. They have every right to watch how you work, how you deal with your family, how you engage the world and the community around you, how you behave when it comes to politics. They have every right to watch you and draw a conclusion. And so here's what it means if I'm gonna stay in my lane and I'm gonna love like I mean it. I am gonna get a reputation, but I am going to get a reputation for loving well, not for fighting well. I am going to get the reputation. If they have any fault with me, it's gonna be because they just keep coming back to loving. I don't agree with what they say. I don't believe what they believe. I don't like their opinions. I think they're this, I think they're that. But at the end of the day, I really can't deny the fact they keep loving people. That's what was happening in this church in Thessalonica. That's what's happening here in this church at Mountain Ridge. You're getting a reputation for loving people, for loving well, not for fighting well. It strikes me, though, that if this is this intense, right? Because it sounds like this is every relationship I have, staying focused all the time, loving people well all the time, finding meaning in my life. I mean, this is a lot. This is kind of heavy. How does this show up in everyday stuff? Because I have responsibilities. I have things I have to do, places I have to go. I mean, how am I supposed to manage all this stuff? And I want to give you 3 really straightforward ideas that have to do with your everyday. And there are places, I'm not prescribing an answer. There are more questions than they are answers. But I think these are things we've got to actually think about. We've got to actually pay attention to because the stakes are high. The stakes are actually really high. So how do I make sure that I am loving like I mean it? The first thing I would suggest to you is you make sure that your daily routine is meaningful. Your daily routine is meaningful. I know that sounds kind of boring. Like, my daily routine, you mean like get up, brush my teeth? Yeah, your daily routine. Your daily routine actually is very meaningful. Because like I said earlier, and maybe you're better people than I am, if it's just up to me to be loving, it's only gonna happen when I'm in a good mood. It's only gonna happen when everything's going my way. It's only gonna happen when I make all the lights and people buy my lunch and everybody tells me how great I am. And you know what? I'm pretty good at loving people when that happens. Otherwise, at best, it's a flip of the coin, right? I mean, come on, let's be honest with each other. So what am I doing every day to help me with my everyday? Because for most of us, our life is not the I can't believe it kind of a day, it's another day, right? Most of us don't have, huge defining moments every day. We have regular days every day. So what am I doing every day to prepare myself to love well every day? There's got to be something in my routine because if it's just up to me, it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be very incidental. It'll be every once in a while. And my reputation won't be for loving well, it'll be something else. So if I'm gonna love like I mean it, if I'm gonna tie into this purpose, if I'm gonna learn from Jesus and follow his commands, I've got to figure out something with my daily routine that allows me to prepare for every day, because every day I'm gonna run into people that have a lot of gratitude, and I'm also gonna run into people that have a lot of attitude, right? There's gonna be drama-free people and there's gonna be drama-full people. And I get to decide how I'm gonna respond to them. But if it's just up to me, I'm in trouble. I need to do something. I need to prepare somehow. I've got to have some kind of daily routine that gets me ready to love well. The second area, your daily routine absolutely matters, but your work is meaningful too. Your work is meaningful too. Most of us spend more time doing work for our jobs than anything else in a given week. We spend more time working than we do anything else. And so you say, well, your work is meaningful. What does that mean? It's actually really, really simple. In your work, whatever it is, how do you help people and how do you love people? How do you help people? How do you love people? It's pretty straightforward, but I know that because I'm guilty of this too at times, I don't usually spend a lot of time thinking about that. But if I'm gonna spend 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week working, it makes sense to ask that question. How does my work help people? How do I love people through my work? And for most of us, you might kind of say, well, I'm making hamburgers, so I don't know. That's not true. That's not true. Whatever you do it all for the glory of God. You can actually do work that helps people and do it out of love. You just have to, most of the time, adjust your mindset. How am I doing it? What is my attitude? What is my heart behind it? How do I see the impact of my work? And for a lot of us, it's really a small adjustment in either my mindset or the actual work that I'm doing, and I can very quickly take it from being something that's just kind of stuck in neutral to a way to help people and express love to people. Maybe it's the person that receives the output of your work. Maybe it's your coworker. Maybe it's the people around you. Maybe it's the vendors or the clients or the patients or the customers. I don't know your situation, but I do know that most people can find a way to make their work meaningful. And I would say this. If you actually make an honest run at it, I'm really trying, I'm thinking, I'm praying, I really want this to be helpful and meaningful, and I've landed at a place where it just can't be. That's okay. Find some different work. God's probably calling you to something else. Tap into that. Ask him, Father, show me how I can have a job where I can love people and help people. He will. But your work needs to be meaningful if you're going to put that much time into it. So certainly your daily routine, your work, but the third thing, your money is meaningful. Your money is meaningful. And before you think, oh, here it comes, he's asking for money. No, I'm not. I'm really not. Money happens to you in about 3 different ways. And I think that makes perfect 3 little questions to think about. Money comes into you. Some of you get a lot, some of you get a little, some of you get in between, whatever. But money comes into you from some place. God's the ultimate source of it, but it comes to you through your boss, through your family, through your friend, whatever. Money comes in. Simple question. When the money comes in, are you thinking about how to have some margin with it, or are you thinking about how to max it out? If I'm gonna have some margin in it, what I'm saying is I'm gonna set some aside. In case I have some needs, in case other people have some needs, I wanna set some aside so that I can actually respond with help and with love with the money that I've been given. If I'm maxing it out, in essence, I'm saying I'm gonna spend every dollar of it, it's mine, and I want it, and this is what I wanna do. Loving like you mean it. What do I do with the money that comes into my life? Second question, money goes out of your hands all the time, right? We all spend money on different things. Nothing wrong with that. We have to. The real question is, when I am spending money, am I spending it for good purposes or for status? Am I spending it on things that are good? Am I spending it on things that will help me be accepted, approved, and included? If I'm spending it on good purposes, it can look like a ton of different things. I'm helping people with it. I'm buying things that I need. I'm doing fun stuff with my friends and my family. I'm enjoying the things that God have given me. All of those are good things. If I'm doing it because I want people to notice it, I want people to include me, I want people to think differently about me because I have this, that's not loving like you mean it. And then finally, when you think about money, how do you think about it? Is it a right or a responsibility? Is it a right or responsibility? However much you have, it doesn't really matter. You got $5 or $5 million. Is it a right or a responsibility? And what I mean by that is, if you see your money as a right, I earned it, I made it, I deserve it, I worked hard for it, it's mine, I have it, and I can do whatever I want with it. That doesn't fit well with loving like you mean it. On the other hand, if I see my money as, it's a responsibility. God has given me this, and I want to use it to reflect him and love people. That's loving like you mean it. So you see, there's a lot going on. It sounds like, hey, love people. That sounds pretty simple, right? But if I'm gonna stay focused and make sure I don't have any relationship regrets, and I really intend to live this out, it's gonna show up in a lot of ways. It's gonna show up in my routines. It's gonna show up in my work. It's gonna show up in my money. And Mountain Ridge, I know that in some ways it's a little bit heavy. You are doing great. You are doing great. And I base that on the conversations I have with people that are telling me, I'm praying about my job, I'm praying for my coworker, I'm praying for my neighbors, I'm trying to help this family, I'm trying to help this person, I'm invested over here, I love these people, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm trying to make up with my mom, I'm trying to make things right with my brother. I mean, I hear so many of these things. You guys are loving so well. And when you do, you know what happens? We all get better. We all get better. When you love your family well, we get better. When you love your community group well, we get better. When you love your neighbors well, we get better. And that's exactly what Paul is saying. You're doing great. Keep going. Keep going. See, our church, Mountain Ridge, we have a history. We've been around for a while, and in church years, I don't know, we're about 25, 26 years old. Got a lot of great stories. There's a lot of incredible things that have happened here. I'm so happy that I got to be a part of some of them. But here's what I do know. If you're willing to love like you mean it, our best days are yet to come. As God pours his love out into our hearts, as the Holy Spirit teaches us to love like we mean it, we find meaning and purpose for our lives, and God uses us to change things. If you thought dogs wagging their tails was impressive, wait until you see what a community does when they know there's a church that's for them and loves them. Because it changes absolutely everything. And I am so excited to be on this journey with you. Let's pray together.